As I think we all know and have seen, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has engaged in a really amazing, highly partisan, unconstitutional power grab. They struck down a map that had been approved by majorities of both houses of our state legislature, signed by the governor in complete accordance with our Constitution, a map that had been supported by many Democrats as well as Republicans. And then the court decided to take it upon itself to draw a map despite the fact that they have no constitutional authority to do so whatsoever. My source for that is the Constitution itself, which is very clear. The Constitution, Article 1, Section 4, gives state legislatures, not state courts, the power and the responsibility to draw congressional maps. It says, and I quote, the very opening lines of Article 1, Section 4, the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. But the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations, except as to the places of choosing senators. Where in that article is there a reference to state courts? I missed that. Evidently, our Supreme Court found something that escapes most of us. Even one of the justices, a Democrat, Justice Max Beer, observed at least that the court itself has no authority to draw a map. Of course, they did anyway. This is an important point because they weren't satisfied with illegally rejecting a bona fide map that was drawn in accordance with our Constitution. They weren't satisfied with that. The court decided they would take it upon themselves to draw a map of their own. So they invented criteria that does not exist in law, does not exist in the Constitution. They decided to make it up. And then they drew a map that violated their own criteria. One of the things that the court's opinion stated was that local jurisdictions like counties, cities, boroughs, even wards may only be split to ensure districts of equal proportions. That was their arbitrary criteria that they created. Then they decided not to follow it. Instead, they split more local jurisdictions in total than a number of other maps that had been submitted to them. Clearly and obviously, it is possible to draw the map in a way that would divide jurisdictions in fewer cases than the court's own map, but they did it anyway. So you have to wonder, why did they decide to draw a map that violated their own principles? Well, I think the reason is clear. It was a partisan motivation. That's why they did it. It's not just my opinion. Even the New York Times, not exactly a typical organ of the Republican Party, in their detailed analysis of the court's map, stated that the map, and I quote, is even more favorable to the Democrats than the plans that the Democrats had submitted themselves. And examples of the court's blatant political motivation, there are numerous. Several were identified by a nonpartisan analyst, the Cook Political Report, Charlie Cook. For instance, the map chooses to split Berks County in a way that reaches up and carves out Reading, the heart of Berks County, the biggest city in Berks County, the county seat. The map arbitrarily goes out and gets Reading and makes it part of basically Chester County seat, the 6th district as they've drawn it. That's clearly done with a political motivation in mind. It splits York County in a way to help tip the number of Democrats in the 10th district. It splits Luzerne County in a way that clearly was designed to protect the incumbent Democrat in the 8th district. Now, let me be clear. The current map, the legal map, has gerrymandered seats. But it was passed with a bipartisan vote. There were 36 Democrats in the State House, 40% of the Democrats in the state legislature voted for this map. A handful of Republicans voted against it. It was constitutionally drawn, constitutionally adopted. What the court has done is truly breathtaking. They have grabbed power from the elected legislators. They did it in order to draw a partisan map of their own. They've engaged in partisanship while hiding behind a mirage of impartiality. And there's a reason that our Constitution assigns to the legislative branch the drawing of congressional maps. And the reason is it is inherently and unavoidably a political process. There is nearly an infinite number of ways you could carve Pennsylvania into 18 districts of equal population. When you make the decisions about how to do that, you inevitably make political judgments. And our founding fathers understood that political judgment should be made by people who are accountable to the voters. And that is the men and women who are elected every 2 years to our state legislature, and the men and women who are elected every 4 years to the state Senate. And it is not Supreme Court justices who merely stand for retention every 10 years. That's why this is so important. The other reason why this is so important is because if any institution in our society needs to uphold the rule of law, follow the law, and respect and follow our Constitution, it's our courts above all others. And when Pennsylvania State Supreme Court violates the law, violates the Constitution, as they have done in this case, then there's a terrible miscarriage of justice. And I want to encourage Pennsylvanians of all political stripes should want to restore the rule of law. We should fight this map, we should go to court, and if necessary, go to the Supreme Court to have it rejected.